President.
Senator from Ohio is recognized.
Are we in the quorum call?
We are.
I ask that it be dispensed with.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I rise today to speak about one of the recess appointments President Obama made when the Senate was not in session. And before I get into my concern about this, I would like to emphasize the fact that I have been the ranking member or the chairman of the Oversight of Government Management and the District of Columbia, and then several years ago, the Federal Workforce. And working with Senator Akaka, we have conscientiously tried to make the most significant improvements in the federal service in terms of human capital and looking at Title V of the code that deals with our federal workers. And that if you really look at the past and determine why we've had some real bad situations in the federal government, is we haven't had the right people with the right knowledge and skills at the right time, at the right place. And so the whole effort has been to try and improve the management of our government, to work with Senator Akaka to try and get federal agencies off the high-risk list, and the high-risk list are agencies that are subject to waste, fraud, and abuse and mismanagement. So I first share that with you because I think it may cast a little bit of a light about what I'm going to talk about this evening. The President nominated Rafael Borras to serve as the Department of Homeland Security Undersecretary for Management on June 24, 2009. That's June of last year. I met with Mr. Borras to discuss his experience, qualification, and goals for the Department of Homeland Security, and also served as the ranking member when the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee held his nomination hearing on July 29, 2009. I carefully reviewed Mr. Borras' background, resume, and stated qualifications, and heard what people he worked for and what people who work for him said about him. And based on all that, I placed a hold on Mr. Borras' nomination because I believe he is unqualified to be the DHS Undersecretary for Management. On March 27th of this year, the President ignored my concerns and my hold and made Mr. Borras one of his 15 recess appointments. And I want to know why. I want to know why. Now, I don't generally oppose nominees, and I don't put holds on lightly. And when I do, I explain why I put on holds. I don't hide out. I let people know why I put a hold on. I'm extremely concerned about the management challenges the Department of Homeland Security faces, which are wide-ranging and far-reaching. When Congress established the Department of Homeland Security in 2002, we initiated the federal government's largest restructuring since the Department of Defense was created in 1947. Once more, we told the department to protect us from terrorism and natural disasters while addressing the organizational, operational, and cultural challenges associated with merging 22 agencies and 175,000 employees into one entity. It's probably the biggest management challenge in the history of the world. The Government Accountability Office cautioned about the challenges the merger would cause and placed the Department of Homeland Security on its high-risk list in January of 2003. Today, DHS is the third largest cabinet with about 230,000 employees, annual budget of $50 billion. Management challenges persist, and the department remains on GAO's high-risk list. Additionally, the DHS Inspector General, the DHS Chief Financial Officer, and the Homeland Security Advisory Council's Cultural Task Force have also identified management challenges at DHS. They recognize they got some big problems. DHS is too big an entity, spending too much money with too important a job to be deemed susceptible to waste, fraud, abuse, and mismanagement year after year. And it's imperative that the right person be put in place to address those challenges. I don't believe that Mr. Borras is the person, and I don't think he will move the department forward towards getting off the Government Accountability Office high-risk list. Now, my concerns about Mr. Borras's qualifications and my hold on a nomination, as I mentioned, were not secret. I wrote the Majority Leader, I wrote Secretary Napolitano, and I also wrote to the President to outline my concerns. I announced in a Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs hearing on DHS management challenges that I was holding the nomination because of those concerns. But no one approached me to discuss those concerns. The Senate did not debate Mr. Borras's qualification. No cloture motion was filed. Rather, my concerns were ignored, and this recess appointment was made. I would really like for someone in the administration to explain why things were done this way. I assume it was because everyone knows that Mr. Borras is not the best person to manage our third largest department, and any debate we had would have made his lack of qualifications plainly apparent. So we didn't debate it. If the Senate had taken the time to debate this nomination, I would have explained that in 2007, Congress set statutory requirements for the DHS Undersecretary for Management. And by the way, we helped create that special Undersecretary for Management because we believed that the department needed someone that would get up early in the morning and go to bed late at night and move on the transformation that's needed in the department to get it off the high-risk list. We required the Undersecretary to have extensive executive-level leadership and management experience, a demonstrated ability to manage large and complex organizations, and a proven record in achieving positive operational results. Mr. Borras did not meet those statutory requirements because he does not have the appropriate executive-level leadership experience or demonstrated ability to manage an organization as large and complex as DHS. The administration and Mr. Borras point to his experience as one of several vice presidents in one region of a Fortune 500 company, as a regional administrator for one region of the General Services Administration, and as Deputy Assistant Secretary at the Department of Commerce. I don't believe, and most people don't believe, these experiences are any way comparable to the challenge Mr. Borras will face at DHS. Mr. Borras has never overseen a budget anywhere near as large as the DHS budget. His own assertions indicate that the largest budget he ever was involved with was $4.5 billion at the Department of Commerce. That's roughly 1/10 the size of the DHS $50 billion budget, and Mr. Borras was never directly responsible for the Commerce Department budget. He was just one of those that worked at the department. Additionally, Mr. Borras has never managed hundreds of thousands of employees like the 230,000 he'll be responsible for at DHS. At most, he asserts that he was directly responsible for managing 1,500 employees while a GSA regional administrator. He has also never overseen a procurement budget similar to that at DHS, where in 2005, $10 billion was spent on 63,000 contracts. Mr. Borras asserts that the largest procurement budget he has been involved with was 1/4 of that, $2.5 billion, while he was at the General Services Administration. Given the vast difference between Mr. Borras's experience and the requirements of the job, I agree with two of his former supervisors who told me that this job is a big leap from what he's done in the public and private sector. In other words, they said this is a big leap from what he's done. Further, when you compare Mr. Borras's qualification with the qualification of past nominees for this position, it is even more concerning. For example, Paul Schneider had over 38 years of federal service when he was nominated to the DHS Undersecretary for Management, and much of that experience was with the Navy, a large, complicated organization like DHS. Similarly, Elaine Duke had more than 25 years of progressively difficult federal government experience, primarily within the Department of Defense, when she was nominated to be DHS Undersecretary for Management. I don't mean to imply that only career civil servants are appropriate for his role. for this role. But Mr. Borras' resume does not include high-level managerial positions in organizations that are similarly complex to DHS. And I think the Department of Homeland Security under Secretary for Management needs a proven record in that regard. I want to emphasize again, we set this up specifically to be responsible for transformation and to deal with the management problems of the department. So we laid it out and said, this is the kind of person that we ought to be putting into this position. Additionally, and unfortunately, Mr. Borras demonstrated a lack of attention to detail on 2 separate occasions in his own personal life, which makes me wonder whether he's prepared to successfully undertake all the responsibilities required of the DHS Undersecretary for Management, such as addressing DHS's low rank on the best places to work in the federal government study, and overseeing the billions of dollars the DHS spends on hard-to-manage projects like Espionette. I feel so strongly about Mr. Borras' lack of qualification that I'm no longer seeking to work to enact a 5-year term for the position that for the person that holds this position. The thought was when we put this position together, we would give it a 5-year term because we knew that if you're going to do transformation, it's going to take more than 1 year. So we'd give that individual 5 years to go forward and just work on nothing but transformation, 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 so this department would come together and we'd get it off the high-risk list. The Government Accountability Office suggested that such a term would help improve the management function at DHS. And I've been advocating for such legislation for the last couple of years. My bill has bipartisan support and has passed the Senate before. But now I don't want it enacted because I'm afraid of having Mr. Borras in this position for 5 years. I don't think he has the skills necessary to get the job done. So that's gone. And I know I'm not alone in my concerns. Mr. Borras was passed out of the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee largely on a party-line vote. But it should be noted that 2 Democratic members of the committee expressed concern about his qualification when we were debating his nomination. In fact, one of the Democrats who voted for the nomination said she was doing so to send the nomination to the floor, but that she wanted the committee to take a closer look at Mr. Borras' qualifications to make sure he had the management skills necessary to manage the Department of Homeland Security. I wondered, did such a review ever occur? If it did not include me, even though I'm the ranking member on the Committee's Oversight of Government Management Subcommittee. And you know something, I should have asked Senator Akaka if he'd ever been consulted, but a dime will get you a dollar. They didn't talk to him at all. I wasn't a strong supporter in creating the Department of Homeland Security. Standing it up created real challenges, and those challenges remain. But the department exists, and we owe it to the United States and our children and grandchildren to ensure the department is as good as it can be. I think we need to ask our president, why did he make this research appointment when doubts existed on both sides of the aisle about Mr. Borras' qualification? What was the stated reason for the appointment? Will somebody explain why the appointment was made? I sat with the secretary and we talked about it. Never in all of my conversations did anyone come forward and say, he should get the job, he's qualified for the job. The fact that no one in the administration defended Mr. Borras' or really explained why they thought he was qualified to be a DHS Undersecretary for Management still remains a puzzlement to me. And I think somebody owes it to me, to Senator Akaka, to the members of this Senate to explain why they put this man in this position under a recess appointment, particularly when we have an agency that if we don't have the kind of attention given to it, will never be in a position where it can get off the high-risk list. Thank you, Mr. President, and I yield the floor.